people talk about haunted places in the tri-state, Bobby Mackey's is pretty much the top of the list.
People get scratched. I've heard growling.
A lot of people have been chased out of that room.
I learned that satanic worshipers still today worship the devil along the Licking River, right here behind Bobby Mackey's nightclub.
Trust me, I've been here 10 years. There's plenty of stuff going on here.
The site was a speakeasy for the mob.
A lot of shady stuff went down in the basement here, so who knows who got shot, but obviously somebody did.
Down in the basement, some say you'll find an actual gateway to hell.
They found someone who was willing to perform an exorcism, and they did it in this room here. I couldn't tell you one place in this building where I haven't seen a shadow figure. People on my tours that have been scratched, it usually happens in there. One guy got punched, he fell down, he hit his head, and he died of a brain hemorrhage on the floor of the bathroom before the police arrived even.
Please tell me who haunts this building. Oh, guys, I just turned on this K2 meter, and it's going off like crazy right here on this pool table. Paul, are you here with me right now? There's me. Alright guys, so tonight we are here at Bobby Mackey's, one of the most famously haunted locations in the entire United States. From a distillery back in the 1920s to a nightclub today, this place is packed with history. There's tons of recordings of deaths that have happened on this property. People have been scratched here. There was an exorcism performed on this property. We're about to go in and see where it all took place, so let's get into it and check this place out.
And I learned that there was a girl, Pearl Bryant, who was beheaded in 1896 by Alonzo Walling and Scott Jackson. Her head has never been found to this day. On the gallows, both men refused, even after they were offered a life sentence opposed to death. With the ropes on their neck, both men refused to tell where her head is. Bar stools, chairs being knocked over, people being attacked, their names being called, and people being possessed.
My name's Laura. I'm with Gatekeeper Paranormal. We've been doing the tours here at Bobby Mackey's for the last 10 years. We really pride ourselves on telling the true history of the location versus a lot of the myths and legends that have been presented as truth throughout the years. The most common one is that this either used to be a slaughterhouse or was built on top of an old slaughterhouse. Neither of those things are true. Back in the 1800s, this was a distillery. It's called the Old 76 Distillery. They were one of the largest distributors of whiskey in the country for over 40 years. But nobody ever talks about that because they would rather tell you that this was a slaughterhouse and they were draining blood and guts out the well in the basement. But actually, what we call the well was actually just a big tunnel that goes from the basement out behind the building to the Licking River, which is right behind us. And it was the distillery that dug that tunnel, and they had a big pipe going through there where they used to pull water up from the river to make whiskey. So that's the true origin of the well, the portal to hell. It was never any kind of well that had water in it. It was never a drain of any kind. It was just a pipe that ran through there. So that story with the distillery kind of overlaps with the Pearl Bryan story. If you're familiar with Pearl, she was a young lady who was murdered in 1896 by her boyfriend Scott Jackson and his friend Alonzo Walling. And they decapitated her, and the myth or the legend is that they brought her head here to the slaughterhouse, did some kind of satanic ritual down by the well, and threw her head in the well as some sort of offering to Satan. But again, that's not true. That her being murdered is true. She was murdered. It was actually about 2 miles away from here, over the hill into what is now Fort Thomas. She was murdered. Her head was cut off, and they never found her head, which was, the big mystery, what happened to Pearl's head. But it was not put in the well, because in 1896, which is when Pearl was killed, the distillery was here, fully operational. So there's no way they could have gotten in here with a head, even if they wanted to. And they certainly couldn't have put it in the well. So we don't really know what happened to Pearl's head. There are a lot of theories. The one that I think makes the most sense is that they took her head to the dental college in Cincinnati, where they were both dental students, because they had an incinerator there, and they likely just threw it in the incinerator and got rid of it. But, again, nobody knows, because even up until the minute that they were hanged, they both completely denied any involvement in her death. So they never admitted to anything, so we don't really know what happened to her head. They could have just thrown it in the river. Who knows? But it's not in the well, I can tell you that much. So let's walk in this way. So while we're standing here, I want to tell you the most common thing, because that's usually the first thing people ask, is what's the most common paranormal activity that happens here, and it has to be shadow figures. I couldn't tell you one place in this building where I haven't seen a shadow figure. They're literally everywhere. Usually when I'm standing here, well, not now because of the big light, but usually when I'm standing here, I'll see them moving around back in the in what we call the bull room, where the mechanical bull is. But you'll see them everywhere. The second most common thing is disembodied voices, just audible voices that you'll hear, not through a recorder, not through a spirit box. You just hear people talking. That happens quite a bit. But back to the history, this room over here, a lot of people call it the old kitchen, but it's actually where Carl Lawson had his exorcism performed. If you're familiar with Carl, he was the caretaker here. He lived in an apartment upstairs for about 13 years. And while he lived here, he was constantly tormented by the spirits in this building. And it got so bad for him that he felt like he needed an exorcism. So they found someone who was willing to perform an exorcism, and they did it in this room here. My question is, it has always been, why did they do it here? Because you think, if you're driving, the evil spirits or the demons or what have you out of Carl, you're just putting them right back in the building. Like, I don't know, I just always think, why didn't they do it somewhere else? But regardless, they did it in this room up here. So that's another area where we get a lot of shadows, a lot of knocking and banging sounds up there. But if you sit up there, again, keep your eyes on this area. It's kind of dark. So if you have any external lights or anything, you might want to set them up down there just so you can see shadows, because if it's pitch black in here, you're not going to see anything. It's on YouTube, though. Have you watched it?
I've seen clips of it, yes.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is on YouTube.
Right. Yeah. Can you leave me alone? Isn't it time for Charlie to leave? Huh? It's time for Charlie to leave. Charlie. In the name of Jesus, Charlie, I command you to leave. I command you to leave, Carl. Yes.
What's that?
I command Charlie to leave. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. I command Charlie to leave Carl alone.
And I don't know how long. That's a good question. I have no idea. So after the distillery, once Prohibition started, of course, they had to shut down the distillery. They eventually tore it down. After the distillery was gone for several years during the 1920s, this was a speakeasy called the Bluegrass Inn. And then once Prohibition ended, of course, people could go anywhere they wanted to drink, so they didn't need to come to a speakeasy. And during that time, during Prohibition, organized crime really moved into this area. And in fact, Newport, which is the city right behind us, was known as the Sin City of the South. It was basically Las Vegas before Las Vegas even existed. So if you wanted to, gamble, drink, have a nice dinner, see some showgirls, you would go to one of the clubs in Newport. So this area here, we're about 3-4 miles just outside of Newport. So they didn't get a lot of that kind of, activity here. But a guy named Buck Brady thought he would try to compete with the clubs in Newport. So he purchased this property, he added all of this on, and opened it up as the Primrose Country Club in 1943. So he was trying, he had, showgirls, singers, dancers, these were all white tablecloth tables out here. They served food. It was just a really nice supper club setting. But right after he opened, the Primrose, tragedy struck, because this area over here, right where the Bobby Mackey wall is, that area used to be the men's bathroom. The area the room that's currently the men's bathroom used to be the office for the club. So in 1943, in that bathroom, 2 guys got in a fight. Apparently one guy made fun of the other guy's hair or the way he was combing his hair or something like that. They got in a fight. It got physical. When one guy got punched, he fell down. He hit his head on a pipe or the sink or something in that bathroom, and he died of a brain hemorrhage on the floor of the bathroom before the police arrived even. So that's the first death that we know of that happened inside the building. The interesting thing about that is that area there is a place where we do get a lot of the audible voices. It's usually men talking over there. I've heard men's voices over there many, many times. They just talk. And a lot of times you can't understand what they're saying. It just sounds like mumbling. But I do have one EVP that was captured in that area. I can play it for you now, or I can send it to you. How do you want to do that?
You can show us. Yeah, go ahead. And you said it was right there?
Yeah. Right there's where the bathroom was. So I had 2 people in here. There used to be tables here. There was one right here on the corner, and that's where they were sitting. So it was winter time. The guy had on a coat, and he had a water bottle in his pocket. And he said that it felt like something was trying to take the bottle out of his pocket. So he's trying to explain that to his wife. He's saying, no, it felt like something was taking it out. And right when he says taking it out, you're going to hear a whispered voice that sounds like, wow. And then the lady will say, what's your name? And then you can listen and tell me what you think it says.
It was like this. It felt like that, like something was taking it out of my body.
What's your name?
Did you hear it?
Yeah, I did. It was like a little whisper.
What's your name?
That's crazy.
A lot of people think it says help, and it could be. I mean, who knows? But it's just, what you're hearing. But what I've always thought it said was Bill, because the guy that died, his name was Paul Goodhue. The guy that killed him, his name was William Bill. And since it happened right there, I've always thought that was Bill or William coming through.
Where'd that happen again?
Right here. Like kind of right by that metal pole right there. Is where they were sitting. And that's right in the area where the men's bathroom used to be. And while we're on that, I want to play you another one real quick.
Okay.
So we're going to walk in the bull room, which the bull, he's right over there. Coming out from the bull, there are like some cords that, the electric cords for the bull. And I always tell people when we walk over those, be careful, don't trip over the cords. Well, I say that, but then inevitably somebody's going to trip. So on this one, what you're going to hear is someone trips and they make this really funny noise. They go like, oh, or something. But don't laugh, because then you'll miss what happens next. 2 things happen after that. One, I didn't even notice until after I had listened to it like 20 times, because the main thing is that you'll hear what sounds like a child's voice. So listen to it and tell me what you hear. There's two things though, and you might not have heard the first one.
Oh my God.
So
That's crazy.
So you hear that,
Yeah.
it sounds like a child kind of, but to me it sounds like somebody going, careful, because they had tripped over the cord. So it's like somebody's going, careful. But right before that, right after the person makes that sound, listen really close, and it sounds like somebody goes, bitch. Listen.
I heard that.
Yeah.
That's a really good catch.
Yeah.
That's like 2 in 1.
Yeah. All right, let's walk in here. And here's a step. Watch out.
Gotcha.
Here's the bull. And here's the cords I tell people don't trip over. So, this area back here, we call it the creepy corner, just because it's creepy. And you'll see, once the lights are out and you're in here by yourself, it's creepy back here. A lot of people get physical reactions back here. They get sick to their stomach, they get headaches, they feel lightheaded. In fact, last night, now I'm not sure that happened here. I have to ask and find out exactly where it happened. But last night there was an event here with a company called Erie Excursions, and I think they had about 20 some people. Like 3 or 4 people had to leave because they got sick. And I'm not sure if they got sick here or in the basement. Lately I've had a lot of people getting sick in the basement. I had a guy about a week ago got really, really sick in the Room of Faces, and we had done a quick tour because they were doing like this. They were doing a private investigation. And we were in the basement. We had only been here for about 30 minutes. We were in the basement. Guy got really sick. He went up and sat in his car. He kept saying, oh, I'll feel better, but he never did. And so they paid for 5 hours, and they left after an hour and a half because the guy was so sick. So I'm not sure what's happening lately, that people are getting sick, but it has been happening a lot lately. So anyway, the pool tables. So if there's ever balls sitting out, which now there's a bunch of them, I always put them on the edge, right like that. And I always ask the spirits to please knock the balls in. They never do, of course, but one time they did. And this was about 7, 8 years ago. I had a tour. We had just done this part, I'm telling the history, we're walking around, and we were just sitting out there investigating. One of the girls thought she saw a shadow in that corner over there, and that's where, there used to be a third pool table over there, and that's where I had the ball set up just like this over on that table. So she thought she saw a shadow, so I said, well, let's get up and come right over here to this one. So we're just kind of leaning here. She's asking questions, trying to get a response. And finally she says, can you knock that ball in? And I know this is crazy, and I always wonder if people believe me, but I swear, it was on the edge, it fell in. I mean, you could hear it hit the plastic, and it rolled down. That's probably one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me here, because not only it happened at all, but it happened on command, which was pretty cool. But it's never happened since, so, but you never know. Just we'll leave the ball there, and maybe you can get them to do it. But back to finish up the history real quick. So after the Primrose, it was open for about 5 or 6 years. And then the Cleveland Syndicate, who was already controlling most of the clubs over in Newport, ran Buck Brady, the guy who owned the Primrose, ran him out of town, and they took over this club and renamed it the Latin Quarter. That's why there's a lot of these decorations still left, like the cactus and this guy here. Those are all original decorations left over from the Latin Quarter. And they were open actually through the early 1970s. After Vegas, was established and took off out in Nevada, of course, that's where everybody started going to gamble and watch shows. And this area kind of started going downhill a little bit. So most of the clubs that were over in Newport, they eventually turned into strip clubs, unfortunately. This club here, they held on for a while. They started having bingo games just to keep kind of the gambling going. But even that was eventually shut down. So I think they finally shut their doors for good in the early 70s. After that, it was a biker bar for a few years. It was called the Hard Rock Cafe. Not like the chain restaurant, that's just the name they picked for it. That place was just very violent. There were always fights here. The 2 people were shot in the parking lot. Sorry, 3 people were shot in the parking lot. 2 of them died from their gunshot wounds. After a couple years, the city of Newport said, no, it's a menace, this place. The police are here all the time. So they eventually closed that down. Sat empty for a couple more years, and then in 1978, Bobby bought the property and opened it up as Bobby Mackey's, and he was here for 45 years up until about a month ago. So that's the history of the location. Do you have any questions?
I was interested about the story when Johanna walked out with the tablecloths. Did you hear about that?
I've heard that story, and I'll tell you an interesting thing that I don't usually tell people because I usually forget, because I don't talk about Johanna a lot, because best we can tell, that is just a myth. And actually, Johanna that's not her story, the one with the tablecloth. That's something else. But I will tell you about that. But the Johanna story, that was something that Carl told people a lot. I mean, he used to sit at the bar, and anybody that would listen to him, he would tell them of all the experiences he had here. And Johanna was one of them. And he used to say that, he would be visited by a lady with long dark hair, and that was Johanna. And she kept telling him to go in the basement and look under the old house, which you'll see when we go in the basement, there is a house down there. So he went down there, tore up the floor, and eventually uncovered the well, which is just, like I said, a hole with a tunnel that goes out to the river. But he uncovered that, and his story was that he found a diary in the well, and it belonged to Johanna. And I'm sure you've heard the story of, she was a singer in the club, or a dancer in the club, my bad, she was a dancer. She became pregnant, her boyfriend was a singer in the club. Her father did not approve, so he had her boyfriend killed, and then Johanna was so upset that she poisoned her father and committed suicide. That's the story of Johanna. When Carl was telling that story back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, we didn't have the internet access that we have today, so it was really hard to verify a story that somebody had told you. But now, in the last 20, 25 years, where it's so easy to research things, people have researched it and have not found any evidence of any of that being true. So that's another myth that we usually bust on our tours. However, saying that, why did he do that? That's my question. If it wasn't Johanna that told him to go in the basement and dig, then what did? I mean, that's just not something you would do. Is just start tearing a floor up for no reason. So something compelled him to do that. If it wasn't Johanna, maybe that was just what he was seeing in his mind, was a woman with long dark hair, but it wasn't actually the spirit of someone named Johanna. It could have been something presenting itself as Johanna. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but nobody has found any evidence that Johanna was a real person. But the tablecloth story. So the story of that is that there was a car accident out here. Now, there have been several car accidents out on this road.
Oh, I'm sure.
But this particular one hit the telephone pole that's kind of like right in front of us right now. And the person was ejected from the car. And when the police showed up, they claimed that a woman walked outside, probably from that door right over there, walked outside with a tablecloth or a sheet or something, and gave it to them to cover the body that was just lying in the middle of the road until the ambulance could get here. The following day, the police came back here to try to find that person and thank them for, giving the tablecloth and everything. And Bobby was here at the time, and he said the bar was closed last night. There was absolutely nobody here, so nobody could have come out and, done that. So for years, I've doubted that story because, interestingly enough, they went on, I think it was the Geraldo show, and you can find this on YouTube if you look, and they told that story. And they actually had a man who was it said he was the chief of police of Wilder. And he was the one that was telling that story on the talk show. And I wanted to find information about that. I have a newspapers.com account. I have searched and searched and searched, trying to find a news article, because that would be a pretty traumatic accident you would think would be in the news, but it wasn't. I searched and searched. I could find no article about that. I Googled the name of the guy that was supposed to be the chief of police of Wilder, and when I looked at that name and looked through the newspaper.com account, that name kept coming up as a district manager for UDF, which is a convenience store chain here, that he was a district manager for UDF, so I don't know. But I was at my dentist about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and the lady, the hygienist, she found out that I did tours here, and she's like, oh, she says, I have this crazy story about Bobby Mackey's. Supposedly, her mother was a passenger in that car that had the accident, and she said that her mother was there and witnessed this woman coming out with the tablecloth. So I don't know. I would love to talk to that lady. She's still alive, but that hasn't happened yet. But I would love to talk to her and find out what really happened.
So how did that story come to light?
Probably Carl. Most of the stories, bless his heart, rest in peace, Carl. Most of the stories that are associated with this place, especially the kind of fantastic ones like Pearl's Head in the Well, Johanna, that story of the accident, all the demon stories, things like that, that's all originated with Carl. I mean, there's a whole book called Hell's Gate that is all about the things he experienced here. Now, I know I'm kind of debunking and dismissing a lot of the hauntings here, but trust me, I've been here 10 years. There's plenty of stuff going on here, and you don't really need all those kind of embellished stories for there to be a haunting here, because there's plenty of stuff going on. So let me show you another room. Watch out for the cords. Safe. So this room here is pretty cool. So the room we were just in, where the bull is, that was the casino room. So that would have been full of slot machines, poker tables, just like you would find in any casino today. But this room here is where they kept the money for the casino. So, and then behind you there is the window with the bars on it, where you would cash your money, or cash your chips in for money through that window. So this was just kind of like an office where they would, take care of the money and the casino business from this room. There used to be chairs in here, and I need to probably pull a few more in here, because this is a great room just for EVPs. We get a lot of voices in here, but the ones in here are usually female. And also when you're in here, a lot of times you'll hear stuff, of course, going on out there. But it's a cool little room. All right, ready to head to the basement?
Yeah,
all right,
let's go.
Oh, here, if you want to go in here, you can. There's a hook under there somewhere. This is just like it used to be a coat room. That's heavy, I can't hold it up there anymore. It used to be a coat room when the Latin Quarter was here, but there's a neat little closet if you go to the left. It's really old. It's got like these old hooks on the wall. It's just kind of cool back there. I don't know that anything paranormal's ever happened back there, but one time I heard that. It wasn't even that loud. It was just like something had pushed it. So, but it's a neat little room.
That's pretty heavy too, so it's like...
It is heavy.
It's weird.
All right. The basement is a basement. There's a lot of stuff down here. This room here, this is Carl's old workshop. a lot of people have bad experiences in there. I'm not sure what's in there, but I'm gonna move this can just in case. But a lot of people, a lot of people have been chased out of that room. So just be careful in there.
Right.
Because I don't know what's hanging out in there. Personally, I've never experienced anything in there, but to be fair, I don't go in there a lot, so I don't know. I just don't go in there. But there's another room I refuse to go in, and I'll show you that one in a second. So this is the old house. Remember I told you the old house is still standing, so this is it. This was built probably sometime in the 1920s. This was the guy that owned the speakeasy I was telling you about. He lived on this level of the house, and then upstairs was the speakeasy. So when they tear this place down, this old house is gone. And I think that makes me more sad than anything, is that they're going to tear this old house down. Because it's a piece of history that has somehow been preserved down here for all these years, 100 years. Yeah, this is all like wood.
What year was it built, or do you guys
I don't
not know?
We're guessing in the 1920s, because the distillery would have come down around that time, because Prohibition started in 1919.
Mm.
If you look to your left here, there's some bullet holes in the door. Again, I don't know anything about them other than they exist. We always assumed that they were from the mob days. A lot of stuff went on in this basement, from what we've been told, just from stories that have been passed down from people who actually came to the Latin Quarter when it was open. A lot of shady stuff went down in the basement here, so who knows who got shot, but obviously somebody did. So this is the well room. This is probably my favorite room in the whole place as far as investigating and getting activity. The well is there, but behind us here, these are the stairs to nowhere. But that's actually the floor of the men's bathroom. Remember I said that used to be an office. So when the club, when the club got raided, the Latin Quarter, because they were always getting raided by the feds for the casino and the gambling because it was illegal. But there was a trap door up there so the bosses could run out and then run out the back door. So that's why those steps are there. That's the only access to upstairs. Well, not anymore, but back then it was. And then behind you is the jail cell. From what we've been told, this room had a big door on it with a bunch of padlocks, and if maybe somebody was cheating in the casino or they had a debt that they refused to pay, they would throw them in there, lock them in there until they decided what they were going to do with them. People that sit in there now, their hair gets touched, they hear whispering, breath on their face. People on my tours that have been scratched, it usually happens in there. Don't know why, but that's where it usually happens. And the funny thing is, you would think it's the person that's like provoking and being really obnoxious, but in my experience, it's not. It's usually the quiet person. So, like I said, this is probably my favorite room because you've got on all sides of you. I mean, you've got the jail cell, you've got the going out to the hallway there, the window that goes out to the main part of the basement, and of course the stairs. Now, I have a couple cool stories from this room. So when I do tours, I always stand, this is my spot right here. I always stand right here because I can see pretty much everything. This doesn't bother me so much, but the window there and that door and the jail cell bother me. So I stay here so nothing can come up behind me. But the first story is last spring, I had my son here with some of his friends. He's 15. He wanted to bring his friends here, as you can imagine. A bunch of 15-year-old boys running around here trying to scare each other. It was annoying. So when we got down here to this room, I said, look, just be serious for a few minutes and let's really try to, see if we can hear something or experience something, like just calm down for a minute. So they're in here, they're all huddled together in the middle of the floor. Two, my son and another guy are facing that way with that window there. Now, they were here in the middle of the day. It's still, even now, there's a little bit of light out there so you can see shadows, because like I said, upstairs, when it's pitch black, you can't see anything. So it was daytime. You could clearly see out that window. So those two, all of a sudden, start screaming. And I'm like, what's happening? What is it? And they said there was a tall shadow that looked like it was looking down, like looking under the window from above. So that would mean it would have to be 8 feet tall, whatever was doing that, looking down through that window. But again, I told you they had been goofing around all night, so I didn't really believe them. A couple months later, I had a tour. There's a chair right there. There was a lady sitting in that chair. And again, I always tell people, keep your eyes on that window, keep your eyes on that window, because that's where we get a lot of shadows going back and forth. So she's just sitting there intently watching that window. And all of a sudden, she starts screaming. And I asked her, what did you see? Because I get excited. Other people want to run away, but I get excited. Like, tell me what you saw. She said she saw a tall shadow looking in from above the window. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So I went home that night and I told my son, I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, I didn't believe you, but somebody just saw the exact same thing you did. Now, the first Ghost Adventures episode, they caught a tall shadow figure walking across the main part of the basement. And I actually have a picture I can show you. And again, I can send this to you if you want, but I'll show it to you now. I don't know that this is what they saw in that window, but it's pretty interesting. So this is down in the main part of the basement. There's a garage door down at the other end. This lady here is real. This is not. You see it?
Yep. That's crazy.
So you can even see like between his legs, like he's walking and there's space between his legs. So yeah. And then the other one that's very similar to that is this one. Again, that's that same garage door. This was actually taken with the lights on. See this doorway right here? You see that guy? Looking out the door. I messed with it and I made it look like that. And you can still see him.
That's crazy.
I have tried several times to recreate that picture. Like I've had somebody go in that room and like peek around the corner and take a picture. I've done it with a flash, without a flash, lights on, lights off. Every single time I do it, I can always see skin. Like he doesn't have skin. He's just blackness. So I don't know. But it's a good one.
That's incredible.
My second story in here is out that door. There's a table. That table right there. I was sitting here, I was standing here with the tour. Again, it was still light out, so I could clearly see out that door. Under that table, there was a black shape, and it looked like somebody was sitting there, like hugging their knees, and they were like rocking back and forth like that. And I kept looking at me, and my brain was like trying to figure out what I was seeing that was rocking back and forth. I thought, that's not an animal. It looked like a kid, honestly, rocking back and forth. All of a sudden, now this sounds crazy, but you gotta believe me, I swear I wouldn't lie. It stopped rocking, and it was still hugging its knees, and I swear it went like that and looked at me, and then it went and took off that way. I mean, it took me a while to tell the story, but it happened like that. Like it was rocking, it looked and took off. And that was creepy to me. That was, if anything, people always say, like, what was the scariest thing you've ever experienced here? I'd have to say that because it was just so weird. The rocking and it was just weird, creepy. Another thing you might hear down here, we call him the shuffler. He sounds like that. He just shuffles his feet along the basement floor. So you might hear that tonight too. But this is a good room, so I would spend some time in here, definitely. So this is the room of faces. That's just what we call it, because there's all these shapes on the wall that look like people. Like this one, they always say is Johanna. Like you see her dark hair, her face, her body. So that's just why we call it the room of faces. As far as what this room was, I have no idea. And I'll say that throughout this whole basement, I have no idea what this room was. It was probably just storage, but I have heard stories from people that a lot of these rooms down here were used for either private gambling rooms, maybe prostitution going on. There's a siren. Anyway, back when it was the Latin Quarter, Probably some illegal things went on down here. Not to mention, people that might have been killed by the mob down here because they didn't keep records of, who they killed on a certain day. So we just don't know what these rooms are for. But this room here is super dark. It's very insulated. So if you use a spirit box or anything like that, this is a good room for that. We also hear audible voices in here a lot. I've heard growling coming from back there. I've also heard growling in the well room, but also back here as well. Let's head out to the main part of the basement.
Oh, pretty big.
So you say that's a hot spot for sure?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I hate touching this. My hand always smells like metal after I touch it. Oh, good. This here, again, I don't know what it was used for. It's just a passageway that goes straight back and ends at the stone wall, which is kind of street level back there. I don't have anything to tell you about it, but if you want to go back there and explore, it's pretty creepy. There's a couple creepy closets back there. Just be careful because there's a lot of holes in the floor and unevenness. So just be careful if you go back there. And then finally, these rooms here are the dressing rooms. This is where the showgirls would get ready before they went on stage.
Oh, wow.
We get female voices in there a lot. So it sounds like they're either like humming or maybe crying. It's hard to tell the difference sometimes. But yeah, those rooms are pretty. I mean, I spend most of my time when I'm investigating either in the well room or the room of faces. These rooms, we get activity in there, but it's just, I don't know, not my favorite part.
Gotcha.
And then that's the garage door from the pictures I showed you. So the tall guy would have been like right in here. This is where he would have been walking. This door is literally about to fall off the hinges, so just be careful. I'm not going to open it anymore. I'm not going in there. All that is a closet. It's storage in there. A lot of the stuff when you walk in, if you go to look to the right, there's a lot of serveware from the Latin Quarter. There's a lot of plates, glasses, serving trays, things like that. In fact, there's a stand straight back. You see that? See that tray with the dishes on it?
Yep.
I mean, that literally, I can't remember because I haven't been in there in a long time. But I want to say there's like still food on it. Like that looks like somebody just cleared a table and set it there. It's really weird.
Wow. And how old is that setting?
From the 40s or 50s.
Oh, wow.
But that room, the reason I don't go in there is because every time I walk in there, I feel like I'm surrounded by something. I don't know what, but I'm very uncomfortable in that room and I don't like to go in there. I had one lady, you mentioned psychics earlier. I had one lady on a tour who claimed to be a psychic medium. And she went in there and she kept asking me, what's under this floor? What's under this floor? I'm like, I have no idea. And she's like, you need to get under this floor. You need to take this floor up and see what's under there. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't want to know what's under there. So yeah, maybe when they tear this place down, they'll find bodies under there.
So
who knows?
Nobody wanted to touch that room. They just wanted to preserve it
Yeah.
because of the history.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this sign used to say stay out because unfortunately, when they did let people go in there, people had sticky fingers and would walk out with a bunch of Latin Quarter stuff.
Gotcha.
So he just didn't want people stealing.
Right.
And so he just said, it's off limits. I don't know why I'm letting people in there, but it's because it's creepy in there and because I don't like it. And I'm always curious to hear if other people have those kind of experiences in there too. So you'll have to let me know.
We'll let you know.
Mm-hmm. So that's everything. Do you have any questions about anything I forgot?
Alright guys, so we were going to start off the investigation here at the pool tables in the ballroom. From what I understand, this is the most active part of the first level, so we're going to set up the spirit box and some of the other devices we have. Most of the activity actually is happening in the basement. That's where the well is in the room of faces, so we're going to head down there after this and see what we can catch up here, so let's get into it. Dude. No way. Guys, I just turned on this K2 meter and it's going off like crazy right here on this pool table. It's still going off. I just took it out and turned it on. Oh my god, I turned it off and turned it back on and it's still going off in the same spot. This thing never goes off either. What the hell? It's like teetering to orange right now. Holy crap. Guys, when I say this has never happened, I mean this has never happened. I mean this thing never goes off. Like there will be investigations where this thing, I never see it blink once. And I took it out of my bag and it just started going crazy right here on this pool table. There's nothing around here that I know that could be making this go off. I mean, my phone is turned off and there's nothing. I don't know. It's weird. That's so strange. Alright you guys, so I'm by the pool table. I have the PSP7 spirit box in my hand here. And let's see if we can catch anything on this first level of the bar. Is there any negative force in this building? Does Pearl Bryan haunt this location? Who are the spirits that are on this floor of the bar with me? Can you give me your name? Is there anybody on this floor of the building with me right now? You can use this device I'm holding in my hand to communicate. I heard something, like they literally said something, the word something. There is a lot of interference, like the tour guide Laura was saying we would get up here. So it's hard to say if anything's truly legit coming through on the spirit box. As you guys can see on my secondary camera right next to me on this table, I have the REM pod device, which still hasn't gone off tonight. I mean, this is only the first spot we're doing, but I just want to say that thing is very hard to make go off. How many spirits are on this floor with me? Was Johanna a dancer here? Was Johanna an actual person? Did Johanna poison her father? I swear I heard lies. Like, I'm not trying to make that up. I may have been some other word, but it really sounded like the word lies came through. Is the story about Johanna real? I heard a very clear female voice say, I think home, the word home. Were you the one that said home? I know a man by the name of Paul passed away up here during a bar fight. Is Paul with me right now? Or Bill? The man who murdered him or killed him? Is Paul here with me? Paul, if you are here with me and you would like to speak, you can use this device I'm holding in my hand to communicate. Come through and say something. I know your life was tragically ended.
Yes.
I heard it say yes. Paul, are you here with me right now? I heard it always will be, or I always will be, or something along those lines. That was scary because that's probably the most convincing answer I've gotten so far. And that was like clear too, like everything else stopped and that's what I heard. Paul, do you haunt this building? I heard a bunch of weird stuff come through right after I asked that question. Alright, so I just made it to the basement, and this is where the well is that Carl dug up sometime in the late 80s or 90s. And supposedly something just told him to start digging down here. To this day, the well is still here. Pretty crazy. Supposedly he found Johanna's diary down there, but that can't be verified or not. So yeah, we're gonna set up a little paranormal investigation in this room and see what we can get. Was somebody buried underneath where I'm sitting? How many spirits are here with me in the basement of this club? How many spirits are here with me? Is there any demons down here in the basement of this club? Is there a demonic energy down here? Is there negative energies in this basement? Can you touch that red light for me, please, on the ground by the well if you're here with us? Can you touch that red light or that green light? Was Johanna a real dancer at this club? Was Johanna real?
I guess.
Did something in this building possess Carl Lawson? Did you want Carl to dig this well for you? How many people died down here? Can you give me a number? Can you give me a number of how many people died down here? Is there somebody watching us right now? Is there somebody watching me right now as I ask questions in the basement? Heard something there, and I don't know what it was, but... Can you make one of my 2 devices on the ground over there go off? Can you go touch the red or green light for me, please? Right there by the well. Do Alonzo Wallings or Scott Jackson haunt this property? Yes or no? Is Alonzo Wallings or Scott Dude, what the hell? That's so weird. Is Alonzo Wallings or Scott Jackson here with me? Are they here in this building? Alonzo Wallings or Scott Jackson, are they here in this building? Do they haunt this property? Alright guys, so I just moved from my final part of the investigation into the wall of faces here in the basement of the building. To cap it off, I'm just going to ask some more questions on the spirit box and see if there's anything down here. Supposedly this is the most active, one of the most active places of the entire building. So yeah, let's see what we can capture. Is anybody buried under this basement? Is there any bodies under where I'm sitting? Heard something there. Do you guys see that? I don't know what it said though. Did the mafia murder anybody down here in the basement? Was anybody tortured, beaten down here? Please tell me who haunts this building. Paul, dude. Paul was the guy that got killed upstairs.
Wow.
Dude, it just shut off.
Holy shit.
Dude, spirit box just shut off right after it said Paul. I swear, no cuts or anything. That's crazy. That's actually insane. I had never had it shut off right after an answer like that. Like an answer that actually correlates to the history of the place. That's insane. Isn't that crazy though? It just said Paul. I was trying to get it to say Paul upstairs, but it wouldn't say it. Who was the woman that brought tablecloths to the police when someone crashed outside? Who was the woman that helped the police? Can you give me her name? Who is the woman that haunts this building? Can you please give me a name? What is your name? What is the name of the woman that haunts this building? Can you please tell me the name? Is it Pearl or Johanna? Did you try to kill Carl? Did you try to kill Carl? You say why? Maybe. Did you hate Carl Lawson? Did you possess Carl Lawson? You say yep right after we ask? Were you the one that was messing with my spirit box? Were you messing with my spirit box? Do you want me to stop filming?
How much time we got left?
Yes.
8 minutes.
Yes.
That was really weird. Do you want me to leave this property?
Said stop.
How many spirits are down here with us? No. You hear that? No. Can you give me a number of how many spirits inhabit this building, inhabit this property? How many?
You heard it?
Can you please give me a number? Did it say 6 or 2?
I heard 2.
A number. Those are probably the only times we've heard a number.
Ask about Paul again.
Was Paul trying to communicate with me earlier? Was Paul trying to say something? Is Paul's energy still in this building?